Hey, greetings, beloved ones. This is your girl Mo the Oracle, and today we are going to have the iconic, holistic, amazing Reggie Hubbard live in the building to talk to us about his self discovery today, live on self discovery, and also talking about the calling, the grand shift, what made him decide to do this amazing work. Not only is he a global speaker, an activist, a humanitarian, he is healing the world through sound and your yoga practices. I got to yoga practices, and along with that, also ancestral work. Helping Black men and just people in general heal as we raise this vibration as we move into this new future, because we all know that love is the highest vibration right now in this moment. So we're going to bring this amazing human on here, and we're going to talk to him about everything he's doing to change this world. So join us as we talk to him. Hey.
Peace to you. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you feeling today?
I'm well. I'm well. Last week I had a bit of food poisoning and
Oh,
also it's also seasonal allergies too and colds and stuff. So I haven't been sick in years because I haven't really been around folks. But as we re-engage, the one thing I think we've forgotten from the pandemic is how connected we are energetically, spiritually, and that even our breath is connected, right? People have gone back
yes.
to a level of callous isolationism and individualism as opposed to collective and community care, right? So I'm lucky that when I told people I wasn't feeling well, like, are you okay? Take care of yourself. Just like it ain't that serious. But I'm just being honest because A, I don't feel that great. And I think it's important to model that. But B, I'm great. I haven't been great physically. I'm great now, and I'm happy to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor and a pleasure. And definitely praying for even fast recovery, because I know
Thank
it's not easy. We do so much for everybody else. And
Yeah,
sometimes, we get the, last end of the stick, trying to take care of ourselves. So I'm just happy you're taking care of you.
yeah. It has been a beautiful lesson.
Definitely. So we're going to get into this. Before we get into
Yeah.
it, I usually pull an affirmation card today.
Okay.
And I pull it from Spirit Junkies. I just love this deck.
All right. What a title.
And we're going to pull some card today. Let's see what Spirit is saying today. Today it says, I am willing to see my sameness with others.
Mm.
This opens up my awareness to oneness. I'll read that again for the people. I am willing to see the sameness with others. This opens up my awareness of oneness. And saying, in a sense, we all are one.
Yeah.
Don't get the craziness and the hype that, we're all separate. Like, we're all in this together. We're all interconnected. And
Whether we like it or not.
exactly, that's the crazy part.
Whether we like it or not, that's kind of those are the rules of this realm.
Exactly. So we're gonna get into it. So first of all, you are the owner and curator of Active Peace Yoga.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to us about that. Where did that journey start? When did that came to you, and the grand shift of things where you said,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is my thing. You're calling."
Yeah, so I mean, for those people who have taken teacher trainings and those sorts of things under the guise of, I'm never going to teach, I'm just deepening my practice, right?
Yeah.
So please know that deepening your practice is the fountain from which your teaching practice emanates, right? So, like, you're deluding yourself into thinking you're not going to teach. So, you may not teach in the Western sense. It may not be a physical practice, asana centric experience, but like you can teach people through your piece. I was on a call just now, quite literally, where someone was like, every time I hear your voice, I feel healed. Like every time like you come onto a screen and smile, I feel healed. Right? That's teaching. Right. And that comes from like a deep wellspring of peace that I didn't know that I had. So I didn't really start practicing yoga or meditation for real, until I turned 40. I'm 49 now. And at 40, I basically was in a really a horrific job situation. Like I was in a situation with a whole bunch of white women in Denver, and they treated me not only like the help, but they were just super passive aggressive and all these. And actually, it wasn't passive aggressive; it was aggressive aggressive. Who am I kidding? Like I would be in these meetings where they would be like, "We don't know why we hired you. You're a waste of headcount." And all these things. And I had moved across the country to work with them because I had a successful work experience with them the year prior. And 6 days into my full time with them, they just switched like and got hella tricky. So I had to figure something out, Mo. Like I was just like, yo, here I am, 1,500, 2,000 miles away from Maryland. I had just gone for two major jobs in the Obama administration and got neither one.
Wow.
So I had to leave Maryland, like, because I was like, yo, I went all in for these gigs. It's like asking someone to marry you, and they were like, nah, I can't. And so you're like, yo, I gotta leave town. Like, I can't be here no more, right?
Yeah.
And so moved to Denver to work with these people who I had a great experience with that went sideways and terrible about 6 to 10 days in. And so I'm stuck and I'm like, yo, what am I gonna do? So when this woman's in my face, like, you're a waste of headcount, luckily the fire that was arising in my stomach just to breathe fire and burn her up, that's there was a pause there. And I started practicing yoga asana on the 9th of November 2014. So I had about 45, 50 days of some level of physical practice that it built that pause. And so I went to a yoga studio in Denver, Colorado named Kindness, which isn't around anymore, and started going to sunrise and sunset asana, right? So like aggressive physical practice because the job was that terrible. And what I did not know is that the shifts that were taking place in my spirit because of my discipline to the physicality were giving me levels of compassion that I didn't know that I had. You know, I'm writing a manuscript now from my about my transition into this guy before you now, and I'm rereading some of my journals. And in my journals, like I'm like, yeah, this job sucks. But in the same journal entry, I'm saying, I wonder what they're going through to treat me so poorly, right? So even in the midst of like this fire that they're throwing on me, compassion is arising. I didn't know that because I was going through it. So luckily, I kept these journals and I can bear witness to the me that I was becoming, right? So they fired me via text message 10 months later
Mm.
and asked me for an exit interview. And my southern roots and like my practice at that point, because I had become super disciplined, like I had become like a yogi dude at that point. And they asked me for the exit interview, and so I basically put my hand on my heart and was just like, y'all know good and hell well we don't need no exit interview. I was like, but I want to
Mm.
thank you. And they're like, for what? I was like, I want to thank you for how poorly you treated me because you gave me the wisdom to handle adversity with grace.
Mm.
And this is after 10 months, right? And so, like, when that happened, I was just like, yo, who is this guy? I'm looking at myself, just like, who is this dude that just got fired via text message, being kind and talking about some, peace and blessing to you. Thank you for teaching me wisdom, and I'm out. Like, so when that happened, I was like, I'm all in. This yoga shit, all right, word, like, here. Like, so and what ended up happening is that I joined the Bernie Sanders campaign immediately after that, and it allowed me to like merge my spiritual practice and my activism practice like together through the crucible of a presidential campaign. And after the Bernie Sanders campaign, when Bernie lost and Hillary lost and Trump and that crazy experience manifested, I was so clear, Mo. I was just kind of like, okay, I gotta go home. I was still living in Colorado at the time. I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta go home. I told my white friends in Colorado, I was like, no shame, no shade, but I can't be black here right now.
Wow.
This whiteness, this white lash that's about to like explode on us. Like, I cannot be black here. Like, I gotta be black
Yes.
at home. Like, and I gotta go deal with the racism at home. Like, you people in Colorado are so woke, you can't see how racist you are. I can't accommodate that. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry that I'm being mad truthful for you, but like you have the complexion for protection. I don't, and so I got to take my black ass back home and be not only in an environment that I'm comfortable in, but also Spirit was telling me to get directly involved in the resistance.
Mm.
And what ended up happening is that I joined. I did some work with Bernie Sanders. Then I ended up joining Move On. I was Move On's congressional affairs director from 2017 through 2021, simultaneously did 700 hours of yoga teacher training.
Wow.
Right. So while in the midst of the resistance, I was like, yo, if I'm going to be in this level of ridiculousness, I have to balance that out. And so, like I said earlier, for those people who are like, I'm doing this to deepen my practice, I took teacher training as a hedge to protect myself and give myself a boundary. So when people are, let's go out drinking, can't drink, got to go study. Right. So,
Mhm.
like, I basically set a box of protection around me through my study, not knowing that when the pandemic hit, Spirit was basically like, it's time to teach now.
Mm. Woo.
Because studios had closed, like the barriers to entry were gone. So like this black hippie has a business degree as well. And so like when,
Yes.
when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, so all those studios that had been like pushing you away, saying your style doesn't matter, you ain't got to talk to them no more because they at their house scared, terrified about natural law. You know what I mean? Whereas like you as a black person are used to shit not going your way. So you can roll with this. Most white people can't. And so in that moment, I launched Active Peace April 4th, 2020,
Okay.
3 weeks into the global shutdown. And I had no idea. I thought this was going to last for a couple weeks. Like, right. So totally diluted. Right. Yeah, I'm going to teach for a couple weeks, then blah, 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 blah. Not knowing that the teaching piece would become essentially the teacher was always there, and the wrinkle of time that was the pandemic
Mm.
gave an opportunity for the genie to come out of the bottle.
Yes.
I said that to someone recently. They were just like, "You think you could ever go back?" I was like, "Never. No.
Nope.
Like, black hippie is out of the bottle. I haven't cut my hair in like a year and a half. You know what I mean? Just like I'm just like totally, you know." If my clients like me, great. If you don't like me, that's fine, because like I'm having to tell clients no because I don't have the bandwidth to give you the service that you require. You know what I mean? So like if I say no to one thing, I know that I know that something else will come up just because it's just kind of the flow I'm in right now.
Definitely. Wow, you have been through such an amazing journey. And
Yeah.
and I don't know the thing about for something about 40s, because when I turned 40, I had an awakening. I don't It's like when you hit 40, everything changes.
Everything changes
Look at things differently.
big time.
And was there when you first like kind of got into like the yoga, the whole holistic practice, was
Yeah,
there any resistance within yourself and outside externally?
sure. So, I was first asked by a dear friend of mine to practice yoga and meditation, and she's a sweetheart. She's just from the Midwest and super direct, and like some Midwest directness and black anger don't always go, hand in
Yeah.
hand. So she like, yo, you should go to yoga to help with your anger issues. So I responded angrily. It was this guy, ain't no skinny white lady. Why would I do that shit? It's not for me.
Mhm.
I don't trick like that, whatever.
Yeah.
And so didn't see it for me. When I went for those jobs in the Obama administration and didn't get either one, it was embarrassing. It was very heartbreaking because I was
Mhm.
like, how can I? So I went to Yale. I speak all these languages. I have all this experience. How is there no place for me in a black administration? Like, how? I don't understand that. And so I really had like a dark night of the soul to some extent, but at the same time, I had the year prior begun to detangle the self-destructive habits in my mind and with my eating and those sorts of things. So when this heartbreak came, I was able to experience the heartbreak more holistically and less in the shroud of trauma, or less in the wraps of past trauma. Excuse me. So
Mhm.
when that happened, I made a list. I was like, yo, I'm only gonna do things that lower my blood pressure, are artsy, and that I've never done before. And so when another white homegirl came up to me and was like, "Yo, you should come to yoga with me," I was like, "I hear it lowers your blood pressure. I definitely never done this shit before. And artsy, sure, maybe." And so that's how I got started. So like it awakened curiosity within me.
Mhm.
And then because I was approaching it from a sense of curiosity, I didn't really care about me being the only black dude in the studio, or those sorts of things. Like I was like, this is for me to heal from this heartbreak. I don't
Yes.
really care what y'all think. And then when the yoga practice really catalyzed with that terrible job, I was processing my own stuff.
Ah,
So you can come at me with whatever you think you need to tell me, but like I'm using this practice as a means to be present with my suffering,
yes.
as opposed to like some social club where I'm wearing tight pants talking about, oh girl, I'll have white wine with you after this shit. That was never for me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and like the hardcore teachers saw my discipline and basically poured from their heart into me. So I had the benefit of being like the yoga gym rat who everyone saw my discipline and devotion and gave me basically their best fruit. So like when
Mm,
in the beginning of my practice, yes, I was under tremendous duress, but the studio kindness, I love that community forever because they really took care of me. And like the teachers really went out of their way to show me yoga as it is, not as the social club of monochromatic thin white chicks. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
yes.
like I was able to experience the love of the practice with my own discipline. So it kind of gave me a different viewpoint. So when people would come at me, so like I remember like when I did the yoga teacher training while working for Move On and all this other stuff. I remember one of my teachers would be like, yo, you're not doing the asana that I cued. I was like, it doesn't fit for my body.
Mm,
So, and last time I checked, I paid you $3,000. So yeah, you're the teacher, but I'm also the client. So like, don't you come at me trying to like tell me what to do. That ain't gonna work for me. All right.
that's real.
Right. And
Exactly.
so like the activist me, so all that happened after like the Bernie Sanders campaign. So activist Reggie and yoga Reggie were the same.
Yes.
So like when people would come at me like, oh, I'll tell you another, I had a yoga while black incident in Washington D.C. where
Wow.
like this white couple, they won't be named, it doesn't really matter. Like we reconciled, but like I blew their mind with this. They came up to me one day and they were just like, Reggie, people feel uncomfortable around you, and I was like, so I'm about to break y'all down. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, yo, you know why they're uncomfortable? I was like, how many black people are in your studio?
Mm,
Yeah. How many black men are in your studio? Uh, yeah. So let me tell y'all a little American story. Like there is a story in this country about white women feeling uncomfortable about around black men, overly sexualizing us, and then throwing their insecurity and over sexualization on us, and we end up hanging from trees. So whoever said whatever about me, about making them feel uncomfortable, like you need to know that my yoga is my spiritual practice, and the only thing I'm trying to fuck are my demons.
mm, that's
I don't
real.
go to yoga studios to trick. I go to process my heartbreak and like and process my life so I can be present, loving, and kind.
Yes.
Oh, and so this lady starts crying after I busted on her like that. And she was like, "Oh, you're demonstrating the teachings. Like, I'd love to tell you thank you, but like the reason I had to share these teachings with you is because you came at me sideways. I just made it plain."
Sometimes you gotta keep it real and stuff because you never present that energy. You've always
Right,
been love and light. You have a love and light energy. Even without you even saying anything, just your energy, it just glows with love. So for them to have that misconception, whatever was in there on whatever they was projecting that of
right.
insecurities or whatever they
I
were
think that is
dealing with,
not mine.
yes, that is not yours at all.
That's yours.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
I'm
even in that,
sorry you went through that. Wow.
I'm actually happy that I went through
Yeah.
it because it introduced me to Faith Hunter, which is my 200-hour teacher, right? So
Oh
like,
yeah, I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I met and studied with Faith because like I had a yoga while black. I was like, well, I need to go be around black and brown people. So word. So that's how that's how I found Faith Studio Embrace in DC when it was still around, and was like a gym rat there, but a gym rat there in a black community, like in a brown community. Like so, like was able during my 200-hour training to just be who I am and not like conform to vinyasa, like Surya A, Surya B, like all the same regurgitated bullshit. Like faith encourages us to be wild and free. And I'm just like, word, right? So like I remember like after I finished my 200 hour, I taught like a 3-hour class for my birthday. You know what I mean? So like I think it was my 45th birthday. There was a 3-hour class. It was like a yin side, a yin practice and a yang practice. Like, and people were like, I don't know if I can stay for the whole 3 hours. I was just like, I don't care. Come when you can, right? So like it just had this whole intermission, like this whole like ridiculous creative experience. I remember one of my teachers was like, I don't know if you'll be able to handle it. I was like, you may not be able to handle it, but that ain't my problem.
That part.
Right. You know, I mean, I'll probably never teach a 3-hour class like that again. But like in the beginning, you know, it was just such a ridiculous, beautiful experience that the yoga while black experience gave me the introduction to faith in her world, which basically unleashed like black hippie.
Mm. And let's talk about when we talk about black hippie, and which as we all know, yoga, the yogic practice is deep within our DNA as BIPOC people,
Yeah, for sure.
regardless.
For sure. It's
This was
indigenous
what
wisdom.
we always have been in community, tribal,
Right.
but tribal, we work in tribe, we work in community. This is the work that we've been doing within our ancestral lineage, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so this is not new to us. We're true to this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And we're Western side, and even if you go in India, they'll teach you, even in the Yoga Sutras, like even as we breathe right now, this is yoga. As we talk and discuss,
Right.
we are actively practicing yoga, right?
Right.
And so this
Connection,
is
liberation, and healing. Right.
exactly. So now I'm looking at when we talked about the black hippie. Let's talk about some of the challenges you faced going into that, when you talked about like finding your niche. Because
Mm.
sometimes, society and these ideologies, they tell us you have to be this skinny white person, you have to, you have to hyperextend yourself, you have to do some
Mm-hmm.
of these ridiculous asanas or some different positions, that
Yeah.
can actually cause harm.
Yep.
And also not having the background of trauma informed yoga too, which is
Right.
also triggers. So as being in this community, what talk us some about some of the challenges, and when did you say, hey, this is I know you said with Faith Hunter,
Mm.
the curiosity and finding your niche, but when, because through different learning experiences, when did you say this is just the time I need to change it and twist it? I don't need to be conforming myself anymore. I can do it the way I want to. Talk
Yeah.
to us about that.
Yeah. So when when the pandemic hit and there was an absence of teachers, there was an absence of wisdom, there was an absence of community. I looked around and was just like, oh, and spirit was just like, you're up. You know, I mean, this is your time. You know, like you can build community. Like you don't have anyone telling you what to do. And like the early days of Active Peace was mostly virtual, right? And so like I had to create opportunity for people to feel comfortable. And when you thought that breathing another person's air would kill you, because it could, you know. And so like I remember like 3 weeks after I launched Active Peace, I taught my first virtual Prince class. So dedicated to Prince, like Prince and Jimi Hendrix are the patron saints of Active Peace, right?
Yes.
Unapologetic black male creatives who lit this bitch on fire and didn't really care what you thought. You know what I'm saying? And so like
Yes.
they're the energy that like I embody with my teaching practice. And so the Prince class I taught around the commemoration of Prince's transition. I think we had like 120 people. Like it was like a big class. Like everyone was dressed up and looking at each other and doing headstands and all this other stuff in their living room. And like this is like 3 weeks after I launched. I'm like, yo, like you got the power to like convene people through the energy of your teaching practice and Prince's music. Prince's nephew came, so President Nelson came to the first class. You know what I mean? A friend of mine invited him, so it was like Prince's family blessed the. It was like this whole thing. 3 weeks into the start of Active Peace, then I realized, oh, so I can do whatever I want. Then a month after that, they assassinated George Floyd,
Yeah.
and at that point, I looked around. I was just like, y'all ain't no brothers in this game talking. So like my activist practice and my yoga practice leveled up, where I was like, okay, so y'all so woke now, like, you know, how come y'all like you putting a black square on your Instagram page don't mean you like black people? Like, and so I knew in my heart and spirit, as you know, and solidly in my 40s, I was like, white people only gonna care about black people for 6 months. And
Mm.
so like, I have an opportunity, and I remember I said this to one of my friends. Like, don't be so cynical. I was like, don't be so motherfucking ignorant. Pardon my candor. It's like me, I ain't being cynical. Like you're being ignorant. I ain't got time for that. So Mo, I did everything. I think I did like 1,100 classes and 1,100 events
Oh.
in that 6 months. It was like a ridiculous number. So that when white people stopped caring, they knew me, right? Like that was the wrinkle in time. Like that was like the masses asleep, so I can escape the plantation, and I
Ooh,
left. You know.
powerful.
So when the master tried to come back on the plantation, I was like, I'm already free, dog. You know what I mean? And I brought hella people with me. So like that 6 month period, so between like George Floyd's murder, lynching, and the end of 2020, I taught so much. Like I was on everything. Like Reggie, can you speak? Yeah, I'll speak. Because I knew that that 6 months was the glitch of the matrix. Right. And so at that point, when 2021 came and then all these other things came, I was an established name of truth, of justice, but of also peace and grace. Right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I've mellowed out a bit, but I remember early in my teaching practice, I was raw. I was just like, yo, you in those tight pants doing half splits on Instagram. How is that helping this existential crisis you feeling right now?
That's real though.
You know what
That's
I'm
not helping.
saying? Like you being cute, doing a split, that's not helping your anxiety. You know what I mean? It's like I'm a black dude who majored in existential philosophy and lives under constant threat of death all the time. Like this is my time.
And you did it, and you're doing it and
Yeah,
continuing to do it on
yeah,
a global platform though. Like, I
crazy.
mean,
Yeah,
it's you're impacting so many people, and just seeing your growth, taking higher education along with activism, humanitarianism, and the yogic practice, and fusing that together to
yeah.
create what you is just phenomenal.
Thank
Um,
you.
and it's not easy, as being a leader,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
trying to find those spaces where you can decompress, finding, because it's a lot, because you have to give so much and you're dealing with so many energies, which
right.
to how do you take care of you as a leader?
Mm-hmm. Sound,
Mm,
sound. Honestly, like I bought my first sound bowl after taking a silent Vipassana retreat after I resigned from the resistance, right? So like when Biden and Harris won, I was like, peace. Like I love y'all. I'm out. People like, but you're at the peak of your power. I was like, it's the perfect time to leave. Perfect time. You know what I mean? Because I'm leaving with like a whole bunch of money in the bank. You know what I mean? Like I'm
yeah.
leaving with all this goodwill. And Spirit told me I gotta go. So I'm out. I bought my first sound bowl after hearing this loud. So I'm on a virtual retreat. I hear this sound, and it sucks that I'm not at my studio right now. But like the sound mode, just I was like, "What's that? What's that?" And ironically also like I saw a horoscope. Sometimes horoscopes are full of it, but like this one for whatever reason was like you're gonna fall into an abyss of sonic like blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, I'm only gonna buy this one sound bowl. Yeah, so I've got more than one.
You got an arsenal, man, with with gongs and everything. You got an
Seriously,
arsenal.
so I've got more than one sound bowl, I've got more than one gong. And for me, especially after I've been on a big gig or I've been traveling a lot, or like, I recently came back from Spain and just had a horrific travel experience just because it was so arduous, right?
Oh,
It's not
yeah.
horrific as in like dangerous, but just long
Yeah.
and grinding and
Mm.
all these other things. I immediately went to my sound studio. In the back room, there's like probably like 12 gongs like on stands and stuff, and made sure that no other tenants were in the building, honestly, and then just went to town, right? And basically it was just to just shake off everything that I didn't even know that I was carrying, either like people's attachment, or like just things that have come up that needs to be released or those sorts of things. So sound for me has been integral to my healing And as you saw when we were at Omega together, like because of my connection to it, it's different than most people. Um, I recently had the opportunity to give a sound healing to Lama Rod Owens, and Lama Rod was just like, yo, I've been around a lot of sound. What was that? He's like, I feel transcendent and connected. I was like, see, that was more of a baptism. You know what I mean? Most people talk about sound baths. Like, I use sound as a tool. He's like, sound was over me, under me, around me, and through me. I was like, that's the power of sound. Most people be trying to play, no shade on other people. It's not their calling, you know. And again, you can't channel Jimi Hendrix and Prince and not fuck with sound like that. You know what I'm
Come on
saying?
now.
Right? You can't. That's blasphemy. Like if you got their pictures up in your wall, so like in my studio, like there's like Prince, Jimi Hendrix, and Martin Luther King,
Wow.
as like the triad, right?
Yes.
The Holy Trinity. And you can't claim those people who've used either their voice and or sound and not use sound that way. So sound for me has become an opportunity to not only like move people, but also just connect. The universe was started with sound.
Yes.
You know, the most powerful chakra we have is Vishuddha, the voice. You know, people underestimate the impact of sound, and the difference between sound and words and sound and music is the sound is primordial. You know, in a lot of indigenous wisdom, like before the teacher speaks, there's a sound.
Yes.
Like to call the community together, there's a sound.
Yes.
And like tapping into that indigenous wisdom, especially there's so much damn noise these days.
Yes. Oh
Um,
my God.
it didn't like sound didn't just help me heal. My healing through sound has become this absurd. I didn't, you know, in the same way I didn't plan on teaching, I sure didn't plan on making money like playing gongs for people. You know what I mean? I never planned that. I was just like, yo, I'm buying this because it sounds good.
Well, you know the ancestors ain't playing with you. You already know that, right? The ancestors, you got a whole tribe of ancestors and soldiers that's not playing with you, and they all across the multi-dimensional, and they are not playing with you. And they said they need you to
Yeah.
be the vessel to do this work. As much as we try to run away from this healing work, they snatch you up and be like, nah, nah.
For real. For real. Yeah, like that's what yeah, for sure. Like that's a given. And it's not only a given, it's fun now. Like that used to be intimidating to me to some extent. You know, I had someone recently be like, you know, what do you do if someone like treats you poorly? I was like, I asked the ancestors to deal with them.
Mm, come
I don't
on.
have the energy or the inclination. I was like, that's on them. Like, dear protectors, dear guides, dear ancestors, protect me from harm and handle this situation for the best interest of humanity.
Definitely. I love it.
Yeah,
Now, you are doing amazing work when it comes to like Black men
yeah.
healing because with our society,
They don't
for
care
men
about us.
crying and expressing their emotions, it used to be this thing of a sign of weakness,
Yeah,
and not even just a cultural thing, but, traditional thing, and it's been
yeah,
passed through generations and generations for men to be vulnerable in
yeah,
this space, in this era of time.
yeah.
Talk to us about this amazing work you're doing. You're going across the board and you are healing people, man.
Yeah. Um, so last year, I met Mike Brown Jr., Mike Brown Sr.,
Okay.
and Uncle Bobby, who is the uncle to Oscar Grant, who was killed in Fruitvale Station. And at a panel at Netroots in Pittsburgh of August 2022, they were Black men like sharing their stories of losing their sons and uncles and cousins to police violence, right? So all these people are looking at it like this, and I walk by this room, see all these Black men, and just feel their hearts. And so I'm like, and like go in there and just sit there for a while. Then they talk, and I'm bearing witness, and just like whoa, this is intense. They asked for questions and answers, and I was like, y'all, this ain't no question, and you probably don't know who I am because I'm addicted to this bad boys moving silence thing. But Reggie Hubbard, yoga dude, yoga meditation teacher, and like it is my soul's work to show black men and black people that you don't have to be like shackled by the chains of the oppressor. Like you don't have to be shackled emotionally to the emotional paradigms that end in your destruction. You know what I mean? And it's like, however I can be of service to you with yoga or meditation, reach out to me. Right. And then I was like, I got to go teach. So sorry, like I'd love to be here longer,
You
but
see in and
I
out.
actually got, yeah, I got to go teach. This is hella awkward, I know, but whatever. And so leave. And when I started working at Kripalu, they invited me as an artist in residence or an activist in residence. And then they were like, we want you to teach here. And I was skeptical at first. I was like, y'all ain't got, okay, whatever. And so I was like, so
That's
like,
another.
yeah, I was like, they're like, Reggie, we want to help you. Do anything you want. I'm like, anything? They're like,
Ooh.
yeah. I was like, help me heal black men. Right. So that incident with Uncle Bobby and Mike Brown Sr. and all those brothers put it in my heart. Kripalu was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, y'all are serious. Right. And so we were able to create a program that allows scholars of men of color, however they identify, like queer, straight, cishet, trans, everything, to come and just have so the name of the program is called Permission and Refuge. So permission to be who you are as you are in a refuge, in a safe place among people who are going through what you're going through to some circumstance. And the first one was launched in May of 2023, the same week of George Floyd's remembrance. Right. So the total ancestral connection and tie, because like George Floyd's murder elevated my teaching practice.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And I was just like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to align with the thing that elevated my teaching practice in service to the liberation of black and brown people. Right. Like that's what I'm going to do. And the excuse me, the event in May was so successful that they wanted to do another one immediately in August, right? And so like in about 6 months, it went from, hey, let's put this thing on a piece of paper to 2 programs that had like 25 different black men from across the country, from all stripes, you know what I mean? Like however they identify, coming together and finding radical healing and finding radical acceptance and finding, one brother texted me recently. He was like, man, I haven't seen you since August, but your words are still with me. Like, like you have impacted my art. You know what I mean? Like I have found a fountain of creativity because I'm not connected to the trauma that I used to once identify with. And I'm just like, yo, like that's the game. Like that's the point. So Permission and Refuge has been a delight and a bit of an unexpected success. And it's also an opportunity to show the interconnectivity, right? So I did it at Kripalu for a reason. And I remember people from Boston, some brothers from Boston came. They're like, Kripalu's history. I'm like, that's exactly why I did it here, because white people need to see black liberation.
That was huge. When you said Kabul, I was like, wow, that's huge. Because
Yeah.
we know they don't usually have that many
Right.
people of color there.
Stop it. Right. No.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I can bring our joy here, it's not just for us. Like it normalizes black joy. They see 25 black men. They don't see us as a gang. They see us as a bunch of fools, like having a great time liberating ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
like that subtle shift is essentially like destroying the master's tools.
Exactly. Dismantling all of that stuff. I mean, to pave the way for the new generation, because these men
Right.
that you're healing, they're able to heal their sons, even their brothers. Once you heal that person, it trickles over to the family and the rest of the
Right.
generations. And I have to thank you and give you your flowers, Reggie, because like to tell you like that when I saw you in person, I was like, I just saw this halo over you. Like I'm telling you, like you might think that, but I'm telling you, you are amazing just by just being you. And not a lot of everybody see the lights, the shiny things, but at the end of the day, the struggle, everything that led up for you to become who you are today, that story, that impact, and how you are selflessly giving of yourself to others,
Yeah.
is beautiful. So I have to thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. No,
You know,
it's an honor, right? To be I remember after the first Permission and Refuge, people were like, yay, it's the first. I was like, y'all know I'm an activist too, right? So I'm glad it's the first, but it's 2023. Like, there've been black people in the United States for
For
hundreds of
real.
years, and it's 2023. It's the first black male. No, I'm not okay with that. Like, I'm stoked that it's happened. I'm honored to have been the vessel through which this thing came through. But 2023,
We're talking about. I was at something at Politico, and they were talking about productive disruptors, right? And I
yeah,
see you're disrupting and dismantling, these constructs and these old ideologies to say, hey, we don't have to continue doing it this way. We
yeah.
can see past, what's the norm is, what the so-called they think is norm.
I taught yesterday to a bunch of union folks.
Hmm.
So brought one of my sound bowls and like brought just my big hair and prayer beads out and all this other stuff. And like I don't remember what I said, but like this one brother was like, "Yo, you breaking all the rules." I was like, especially if they're stupid.
And Reggie.
I was just like, I don't mess with stupid rules, man. Nah, because I don't remember what I said. I would have loved to remember it because I said something and he was like, oh, whoa, you said that. I was like out loud in front of 15 people and they may not hire me again, but the rules are stupid. I ain't playing this game.
Oh man. We love you, Reggie. The other thing I wanted to ask was in regards to how important in this time, in this day and age, as we evolve as humanity,
Hopefully.
to create these safe. Yeah, hopefully we. Sometimes it feels like we're heading backwards.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
How important is it to create safe spaces for
Mm.
Black and Brown people in this time? And because we've uh been it's been in a point where we're being stuck. It's only maybe recently we've been allowed to really open up and really be truly vulnerable.
Without fear of death, right?
Yes, exactly. So how important is it to create safe spaces, and how do you see that in the near future for this healing community?
So the most beautiful thing of all the beautiful things that permission and refuge brought into the world is when I played gongs for these brothers and 25 black men sleep in a circle in the floor.
Mm.
Like you are so comfortable with yourself and in your surroundings, you fell asleep. That stays with me, right? Like whatever is emanating and coursing and pulsating through this thing, like helped create an environment where 25 strangers slept because I'm hitting this heavy metal, right? In the daytime, you know what I mean? So it wasn't even like at night or whatever. It's like at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, like cats just sleep, snoring, whatever. And or cats when we start talking from the heart, like boohooing and crying, and like brothers like arms around each other, just like people crying so hard that they're literally snotting on people's shoulder and no one cares. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like, yo, we're here for each other. So like that softening, like that ability to be at rest is not only good short term, but long term, like you'll never know honestly what you're carrying. So, like, when people go through a healing journey, they're like, I wonder what was released. Does it matter?
Mm. That part.
Does it even matter? It may not even be yours. Like, I know that my grandmother came and visited my studio recently. She's 97.
Oh,
And
God bless her.
I know, right? And she came and she played some of my sound stuff. And she was bragging as grandmothers do. She was just like, I went to Reggie's studio and I played his pots and pans. And I was recently in Southern Georgia at a enslaved human memorial where
Mm.
they had like a backhoe and a bucket and a washboard. My grandmother, who's 97, knew her great grandparents who were born in
Blessing.
the 1800s or whatever. So when she's like, I saw Reggie playing his pots and pans, she's bringing to mind how enslaved humans who didn't have instruments would just bang metal and make it work. And so when grandma was just like, yo, like I saw my grandson playing his pots and pans, and then I saw this enslaved human memorial, I was like, ugh.
Yeah, chills. Ooh.
Woo, woo. Right? Because I mean, sound's gotten to the point now where I was at my girlfriend's house recently and I kicked her trash can and a note came out. And so I picked it up and I started playing the trash can and I made the trash can sing and I did all this other thing and I put it on social media and people were like, "Whoa." I'm like, "Yeah, y'all think like everything has music, everything has beauty." But we've conditioned ourselves not to think that way. And so for a black person, a brown person to show people beauty in the mundane, I think that's a pretty amazing gift that I've been able to share.
Well, we're proud of you and everything that you're doing, Reggie. And the last bit we want to just
Yeah.
ask is like for people, younger people, or just anyone in general that's getting into the holistic space,
Mhm.
BIPOC, or just anyone in general, what are the top 3 advice you would give them?
If you do not have a personal practice, you're wasting your time. You cannot give what you do not have, right? So, for instance, I have sound bowls at my feet. So when I wake up in the morning, I literally set my vibe. So people are like, it's like you have an intimacy with sound. I'm like, yeah, because it's at my foot. You know what I mean? And so like it's a part of my life. Um, do not fall for the performative aspect of this thing. Like devotion and discipline are the key. Performance is spiritual bypass and harms everyone. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is that like if anyone says that you're not welcome, it is fully within your right to ignore them. Right? If you feel it in your heart and spirit has placed it on your lips, speak it. Because if you don't speak it, it can't be rewarded, right? Like you can't claim what you don't name, and you can't change what you don't name either, right? And so, like again, going to the importance of voice and sound, what you say matters. Another thing I would say is that, like, as a healer, you must dissociate yourself with the trauma that you've experienced. You've got to process that stuff. Like overly ident. So for instance, if I was like, I used to be Reggie X and hate all white people. You know what I mean? So like, there's no ridiculous healing at Kripalu for black men if I didn't get over my latent anger towards white society. I had to stop identifying with the trauma that white society placed on me, see it as a tool for liberation and transformation, and then be able to work in concert with other humans to elevate the human race. Right. That is hard for black people to hear. I hear like a lot in healing circles, oh, that's a lot of emotional labor. The spiritual path is emotional labor, family. It is emotional labor. And if you aren't willing to do the emotional labor, then you're not willing to find liberation. Right? So that's not to dismiss the very real trauma that we experience as human beings, that we experience through the unfair vestiges of racialized like trauma. Like that's not to dismiss that, but that's not who you are. You're the energy behind that. The energy behind that is coming through this web of trauma. And if you don't like break the web, then you can't find liberation, right? And so that's what I would say. Just like it is okay to experience trauma. It is not okay to identify with it whole. Like that's not who you are. Trauma, and I know this from my lived experience, the anger that I felt towards white people, like when I started teaching, do you know who like before I got the chance to teach black men healing, I had to teach hella white people.
Look at that.
Yo, I was pissed. I was like, I I was like, this totally sucked. Like, I ain't signed up for this. You know what I mean? Just like, I want to heal black and brown people. All my students, but were white. I was like, oh my God.
You said we got to get through this layer first.
Yo. But that's what happened. Like once I got through that, once I processed all that,
Yeah.
spirit was just like, okay, here's your black male healing thing. Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's And that's hard for people to hear. And, people have been like, you're insensitive. I was like, no. And I mean this from a loving place. I'm not insensitive. You're just ignorant.
Mm. Mm.
And ignorant is in you don't know.
Yeah. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
But if
So,
you know better, you do better, right?
right. And so finding ways to liberate yourself from the weight of not only your past trauma. There's the only way I can be this free is because like I did the work on myself, stopped identifying with the trauma, which allows the trauma that people before me felt to be liberated. So when I walk into, so for instance, like I do a lot of political work. Most recently, I saw and have done some work with Nancy Pelosi. So like when Nancy Pelosi comes up to me and is like, Reggie, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for helping us out. Like Black people used to not be able to vote. So me engaging with the Speaker Emerita is not just good for me, it's good for my ancestors who never had access to the power structure.
Mm. And that one thing you said was that not having access to the power structure is big. And it brings me back to last night with one of the Senator Butler. She said,
Yeah.
she
she's
said,
dope.
she said that basically that we don't want to leave these spaces where people are astonished that Black people are in these positions. This should be a norm. You should
Yeah.
not be in shock that a
Right.
Black or brown person are in these positions because they are qualified.
Yeah.
All we need is the opportunity.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's
But
what I would say to folks. It's like, listen, like heal yourself, practice, and if someone says you can't do it, you do not have to listen to that.
yes. There are plenty of haters out there. You do you, at the
Absolutely.
end of the day. And you're doing amazing as doing you. And your music is amazing. And people who want to check you out and also check out like the studio and stuff. Are you having classes? How's the classes schedule? Or do they go to the website?
So go to the website. There's stuff there. Like I do small stuff at the studio. Like it's more of like a sound studio and my personal writing space or whatever. But like I invite some people there because look, there's so much healing energy in that room. You know what I mean? Someone came and visited me recently. It's like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Come through. Like it's not. I mean, it's not huge, but it's big enough to just get the liberation that you need, right? Like it's just not like we get conflated again. There's a capitalist notion in wellness practice that I also want to speak to as well. Most of my stuff is donation unless it's done for like corporate folks, right? Because
Yeah.
like I want people to have access to the teaching or practice, like when have money not be a thing. And I also tell people, and I did this at Kripalu recently, I was like, just because this is offered doesn't mean that it's free. Right? Like Black labor has been exploited for centuries. So me freely offering is not free. If you care to donate, that's cool. If you cannot donate, I need you to talk about this. I need you to share healing with others, not to big me up. Spirits got me. But like, so you can get in the habit of sharing good news and not treating your healing as like a isolated incident, right? Because when we as people talk about our healing with other people, people know that it's possible. Like in my newsletter recently, I talked about the upcoming blackmail retreat that's coming in February for President's Day weekend. And most of my newsletters are white folks. I was like, look, I need y'all to tell your Black friends about this because they are praying for these spaces. They don't know it exists. And so, like, if you know Black and brown people, get into the habit of sharing this, A, so they can hear it, and B, so you can start caring about Black people's healing and liberation as well.
Share, and support, this amazing work that Reggie is doing. It's a global empowerment movement. And with sound it heals. And Black and brown people, you already know this is in your lineage. The sound, it's in our body. There's something and you should visit the studio, support Reggie and everything that he's doing, and spread the word. Even if it, like a post, share a post, repost it, even if you don't have monetary means, share, support in some way. And I think we need to do that more within the community,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
stop doing this individualism and realize that we are all connected, and you're always one person away from your blessing. Everyone's a blessing in their own way,
Absolutely.
so thank you so much, Reggie. I know it was a little bit long, but we thank
Oh,
you,
good. Well, good.
we thank you so much because we love your wisdom, and this, we're gonna post this up and we're gonna take some snippets and put it on Instagram. But we
Please.
thank you so much for your blessing us with your energy and presence,
Yeah,
even when
thank
you weren't feeling well.
I appreciate that. It's an honor. I thank you. Any chance I get to talk to people, much less people who look like me, to normalize all these things, right? Like I've been blessed to be able to not only share my wisdom with folks, but my healing, me taking my healing seriously has impacted tens of thousands of people in 3 years. So we just getting started.
Raise the roof on that. Bigger and better. 2024, we are not holding back. We taking everything, okay?
So
We are not we're not even playing, we're not playing big, we're playing astronomical.
absolutely. Absolutely. For sure.
Definitely. So we're proud of you. We love you. We wish you nothing but more blessings,
Thank
Reggie.
you.
And have a wonderful and blessed day.